Good morning, everyone. Hi, my name is Sandile. I'm the marketing manager of Braintree. Today, we have a couple of my colleagues. We've got Greg Wasp, who's part of the data insights department. We've got Doug Morrison, who's the strategic head for modern workplace at Braintree. We've got Gregor Dreyer, who's our marketing strategic head. And we've got a guest from Microsoft, Timothy, who will also be helping us with the presentation today. I'll be handing over to Doug very soon to get us going. But if you already have questions that you have been pondering and would like to pop in the chat for us to address later on in the presentation, please feel free to do so right now. Otherwise, obviously, listen through the presentation and anything that pops in your mind, please feel free to pop the question in there and we'll do our best to tackle those questions. Otherwise, you can obviously just wait for the end of the session where we also have our own questions that we will post to the presenters today that hopefully can assist you in your business as well as your plans that you have around the AI environment that's currently taking the wave across the world. Okay, thank you. Doug, over to you.
Good day, everybody. I trust you're all well. I just want to check that the take control has actually worked.
Yep, the take control has worked, so I can
Excellent.
see the agenda.
Excellent.
As you can see there, guys, our audience, I've gone through the introduction. Doug is going to handle the agenda from here, which is discussing modern work Copilot, M365 Copilot, productivity, responsible AI, which I think a lot of you might enjoy, especially with the fact that we don't know what AI is leading us towards, and it'll be great to understand where we can take our businesses going forward. And then resources, which will obviously be links and any documents that you could possibly download to further your education on this topic.
Excellent. Great. Thank you very much. Thank you to everybody that's joined us on this chilly little morning, or almost midday in my case. I've been up so early, I might have to reshave a little bit later on for any other appointments I may have. So welcome to the session. And I really want to delve into this quite quickly. There's going to be, and I'm hoping there's a huge amount of questions that will come out of this, but what we're going to do is just lead kind of a discussion around what some of the things are that Microsoft have put in place, what some of the things are that we need to define, that we need to understand, what we need to do as organizations, why we need to start feeling safe, why responsible AI is important for all of us. So I think, without laboring that point, just a little bit of a history quickly. And if you think about how quickly things are accelerating at the moment, and I think that AI is going to help drive a little bit more acceleration. So if you think about where we are, we're at a junction, we're at a new inflection point in IT. Like laptops were initiated and came to South Africa at the outset of our internet journey in around about 1989. Following that, the cloud, the MS cloud in the form of Azure arrived here in about October 2008. Not the physical data centers, but the actual offerings around platform as a service. Hybrid work hit us quite hard around March 2020, outset of COVID. And we are now at AI. The artificial intelligence has really come to fore within 3 years of the hybrid work environment, just purely because of the amount of work we have and our need and requirement to automate processes, automate engagements with applications, get better at understanding our data and moving forward from that perspective. So let's just quickly go through this. I mean, we've heard a lot, and I'm going to call out to Tim to just chat with me quickly. So maybe we could just talk a little bit around AI, OpenAI, ChatGPT, Copilot, and the Microsoft engagement around all three of those platforms. What does that look like? Where does that leave us? How does it make us feel? Where are you at? Where's Microsoft at insofar as that journey?
That's a great question, Doug. And maybe kind of a foundation for this, right, is that OpenAI is outside of Microsoft. It's a Microsoft-owned product. We collaborated with them, and they created ChatGPT. With our collaboration, we built and I would say our own version of OpenAI called Azure OpenAI. These are two separate systems, and Copilot is kind of the child of that collaboration that we had. So, there's this clear distinction that there's OpenAI, which is a public service, ChatGPT kind of resides in that. And then we've got our Azure OpenAI, which actually builds on those large language models that we co-developed with them. But your data is your data. Within Copilot, within any Azure OpenAI space, that is where your data sits. It doesn't go out to the public internet.
Okay, cool. That's great. I mean, and I suppose really, if you think about the starting point over here, and I suppose we need to just move on to the next slide. Or so, and just talk a little bit around this. I mean, autopilot versus Copilot. Give us a little bit of an understanding around how Microsoft's viewing and portraying and putting forward this discussion point. You've touched on one or two of the issues, but I mean, I'd like to delve in on that, right? It is literally around, so where do I stand as an individual? I mean, should I be worried? Shouldn't I be worried? As an organization, should I be worried? Shouldn't I be worried? So let's chat a little bit around that.
Yeah, sure. I think with any new technology that comes on board, whether it's from Microsoft or anyone else in the world, we always need to be aware of what is happening around us. At the moment, there's this huge consensus that AI is going to replace my job, and it isn't really. When we use the term autopilot, it's actually a Microsoft product used to provision Windows machines, right? If you know that out of the bat. But a lot of customers and people out there think that AI is going to replace me as a human being. Whereas if you click one more animation there, please, Doug.
There we go.
Whereas Copilot is exactly as the term dictates. There is still human interaction in this process. Think about Copilot as an assistant. It is not a replacement. It is not a robot sitting somewhere or artificial intelligence that can build quotes for you based on the understanding of what you have as a human being with your customer. It's really think about Copilot as, and specifically Microsoft 365 Copilot, as an assistant to help you be a better writer, a better content creator. Instead of us having to go listen back to all those recordings that we always promise we'll go listen to when we can't make those meetings, gives you a synopsis of those. So it's really just an assistant, a really, really clever assistant. Copilot is not intended to replace human beings in the workplace. Think about a pilot and a co-pilot, right? You are still the pilot.
Tim, it's a great starting point at the end of the day, insofar as just understanding, let's call it, some of the components that we have in Copilot, what the main pillars are that are required in terms of being able to move forward a discussion, not only with the customer. And I'm also going to ask Greg to give us a little bit of insight around the data aspect, but let's talk about that in 2 seconds. I think really for me, it's around how important is it for us to have somebody assist us in a data realm in order to actually project and become more productive. And I think that Copilot's starting to look at that. If I have a look at different use cases, and we'll show a video or two and discuss those videos in a short while. But I was thinking around the fact that without the human driving the question, even, we're going to be in trouble. If you have a look at Bing Chat Enterprise, now just released in a couple of weeks back, or a week back actually, at Inspire in the US, those are excellent examples of us using like a natural language to ask a question, to get an answer, then to drive additional questions to refine that answer. It can't do it itself. That's the challenge behind it. And therefore, that kind of distinction between, I suppose, autopilot, not the Windows one, but autopilot as in it can do it itself in comparison to Copilot is the key takeaway. Good.
So Doug, I want to add to that. I've used our enterprise chat version of Bing Chat, right? That's coming down. And AI is still very inaccurate with its statements. As an example, if you had to go onto ChatGPT and do a research on a specific person, name, surname is unique, it will come up with varying versions of that person. It might have some of your personalities and traits pulled from LinkedIn, but it might find something completely different on the web. So just to drive that point home is that AI and specifically Copilot, will give you about 70, 80% of the information that you're looking for in a well-articulated way. But it's still up to you as a human being to review, modify, and then send. Copilot won't do that for you. So just driving that point home around, it is really an assistant, a co-pilot, whereas you are still in the driving seat.
100%. And I find that myself. I did a couple of searches this morning around defining a tabulate the difference between the latest Bing free version and the Bing paid for version, which will be the enterprise version. And it gave me a nice table of stuff that you can go through and go and actually look at. But I had to refine it twice just because, the question wasn't clear enough. So I think our roles are going to change. The way in which we interact will change, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to change. So we won't get, people won't get rid of us at the end of the day because of that. We're still very integrated part of this whole discussion. So swinging this about a little bit, right? There are obviously components in Microsoft 365 Copilot. Now, there's probably a Copilot for every cloud. You already alluded to it a little bit earlier on, Tim. You alluded to the Azure Copilot, or OpenAI in Azure. You alluded to the, well, you haven't, but there's a Dynamics Copilot, which we're going to learn about tomorrow in another session, session 2, which I'm hoping most of you have joined up for or going to go and have a look at. And then there is a Copilot for modern work. The security is going to become a big component to this discussion. So you're right, there's security Copilot. So literally any one of the designations that Microsoft's focusing in on has a Copilot portion. It's going to be everywhere. I suppose the right here is it's not launched properly yet. So there are only 600 organizations in the world that are putting together the use cases, starting to work on what the ROI is. That's quite cool. We want to understand what the return on investment is, or and see whether we can really quantify for a change, because I think we're now at that point. Quantify for a change. What does an improvement in productivity mean? And we'll see that in a short while when we play the video a little bit later. But let's just come back to this. So 3 things required in order for Microsoft Copilot to work. It's the large language models, or LLMs, and there are a couple around. Microsoft has picked OpenAI as the provider and ChatGPT as the solution. And that GPT really talks to generative pre-trained transformers. These are predefined searches on information, and that's awesome to be able to utilize that in this tool set. Then what's critical at the end of the day, and one of the key and central elements of the components, is the Microsoft Graph, your data, guys. And I'm going to have Greg talk to that in a short while. And then obviously all these are embedded in the apps, and we'll talk about the apps that are most applicable to us in a short while. So Tim, from your side, the large language models, ChatGPT, good, bad, indifferent, where are we going, and what are the kind of components, if I can, just, and I don't want to sideswipe here, but I believe that Google has also got one coming out a little bit in a little while, or it's out and it's being tested. You guys got any insights in terms of what Google's up to?
So, I mean, we've chosen OpenAI as our partner for creating these large language models. Some technical info behind that is this runs on massive graphics cards, right? Really expensive GPUs that we help to train those LLMs. A person can think about an LLM as a public library. As you have words or a dictionary to describe what a word means, think about a library being used to bring forward sentiment and that kind of stuff, right? So sentence, if I had to put it that way. So using natural language, you could ask something like, how's the weather today? And it would actually give you a fully constructed sentence versus just a set of degrees, and off you go. So it understands what you mean and tries to re-articulate it back to you using these LLMs, because remember, thinking about LLMs as a library of books with different values, different aspects, different viewpoints. That's pretty much in essence what an LLM is. We'll touch on where your personal data comes into this from a graph perspective, but understand that LLMs we do not use customer data to train LLMs. So if you're using Copilot in your organization, we do not use your prompts, your responses to train those LLMs. That is done in combination between Microsoft and OpenAI through public sources, not your customer data.
That's such an important point. Greg, maybe an opportune time for you to come in and just kind of give us a little bit of guidance, because I think, we're not going to talk next steps yet, because I think we don't really have all the insights as of yet insofar as when the product is launching. Tim, I'm sure you have some insights, but I know that you guys are mainly under NDA, so there's very little chance of us getting a real date. But the point at the end of the day is that if we don't start talking about these technologies to our customers, they're going to feel left out in the first instance, and secondly, they'll miss the boat. So I don't want that to happen. I want them to be kind of in line with us. So to that end, Greg, from a data perspective, right, what do you recommend guys start looking at in the way in which they're approaching their Copilot strategy? Let's talk at that level.
So listen, it's one of the biggest things. It's like if you put corrupt fuel into your car, it's going to break down, plain and simple. So the first step on any insights journey, because at the end of the day, we're not really buying a product. We're not buying Copilot. We're buying business insights. We're buying business value. We're buying increased productivity. So if we're making decisions based on the results of a query, and the underlying data is not in a good shape, you're going to get skewed results. So specifically in the M365 Copilot and the Modern Work Copilot, the data it's going to be looking at is the data that you actually have in your OneDrive, in Teams, in Outlook, in Excel, in PowerPoint, or wherever it is. So, and you've got to think of it like we were saying, it's like the data doesn't actually move to the cloud, to Copilot, and then come back. It doesn't get transmitted. It calls a service. It's exactly the same as typing, clicking on a sort button in Excel, just on massive steroids. So from that perspective, like the first thing you want to look at is just to make sure that your underlying data within the M365 environment is in a good state, i.e., are emails archived correctly? Is there clear path and understanding of where do your emails get stored? And then the other side of it as well is to ensure that your Active Directory is clean, correct permissions, correct groups, etc., because that is going to govern what people have got access to. So exactly the same way as you can't just go into the HR system and access the payroll records right now. Copilot is not going to be able to do that either if you don't have that access. So from a security and a governance perspective, make sure your AD is correct. Make sure that the correct, like for example, the other thing as well, if you've got like a big legacy SharePoint site with a lot of file shares and stuff like that, make sure that the backup retention policies are correctly done there, that you don't have duplicate records floating all around the organization, because that is just going to make the deployment of what I always call the pointy end of the stick, which in this case is Copilot, way more efficient. So,
well, Greg, that's great. That's a lot of insight. I think beyond that, though, is that the 2 points that stick out for me is the first one. It goes like, you know what? Accuracy is going to be key in this environment. You can only make it accurate if your data is accurate. Don't feed it hog, because it's not going to be able to deliver. The second bit to that is you're only going to get business value if you do the right steps and you, let's call it, index your data correctly across the various sources of data. So be it archive, be it email, be it whatever the case might be. And there are tools available. We'll talk a little bit around SYNAC indexing a little bit later on in the presentation. But these are kind of the steps that I'd start looking at in terms of understanding how ready am I to actually go on this AI journey? Because it's not, here's the product. You so rightly said, it's actually, here's the roadmap, and this is how I'm going to get there at the end of the day. So we should move on quickly and just talk a little bit about the Microsoft 365 apps, because similarly to most of the applications, your applications that generate content or store content are going to become critical in allowing you to go on this journey. Now, I'm also going to have to highlight, I mean, we're going to talk about limitations maybe a little bit later, but for now, I'd like to highlight the potential licensing complications and complexities that you're going to need to deal with. So first and foremost, you are going to need an Active Directory Plan 1 or Plan 2. That is now called, sorry, Microsoft's changed the name for us. It's now called Entra ID. So you're going to need that as one of the prerequisites. Beyond that, Microsoft's releasing in Wave 1 Copilot for Microsoft 365 E3 and E5 customers, and then subsequently to the business standard and business premium customer sets. Up until about a week and a half ago, business standard was not part of that prerequisite list. So it's good to see that it is going backwards into the licensing SKUs, but I want you to be quite aware of that currently. So it's really cool from that side. Nothing planned for E1 customers at this point in time, and please hear me. Yeah, Microsoft 365 E3 and E5. It is not Office 365 E3 or E5. You'd have to go on an upgrade path and part of your get ready plan. So bear that in mind. Just putting that on the burner and giving you guys some insights around that. So to that end, I think really what would be quite, well, let me just get on to the next slide quickly. I think we're going to maybe just hear a video. Let's just see quickly. No, we're going to talk a little bit about business chat. Tim, talk to me a little bit about the concept behind business chat. Talk to me a little bit around the security aspects. What we're going to be looking at insofar as business chat goes for Microsoft 365 Copilot.
It's a good question. I'm going to take it one step back because this is part of a journey story. Okay. So we have a product called Microsoft 365 Copilot. That's the all-encompassing Copilot experience. Inside of this, you have a Copilot experience in Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, Teams, and then we have business chat. So when we talk about those experiences in each of those apps, they are contained within those apps. So for example, you're in Microsoft Word and you need some inspiration in starting a response or an email, or sorry, not an email because it's Word, but a response or a letter that you're trying to draft, right? You can use Copilot in Word to pull sources across your organization for the context of that Word document. Now, business chat comes in a little bit differently because you can use business chat to bring all those Word, Excel, PowerPoint, emails, all of that into a single conversational AI piece, all in Teams. So what this means is you'll have a little Copilot icon and you can engage with Copilot with things like, tell me a little bit more about Fabricam and what went on with them this week. Conversational, right? It will then respond back with information from Word documents that we've created, proposals, for example, sent out, PowerPoint presentations sent, emails, Viva, there's the Viva component, Viva sales, right? Then there's Teams meetings. If you've got premium, then it will start pulling out meeting notes and transcriptions. And so it really becomes a conversational piece. That is what business chat is, right? It really gives you context to the content that has been created, let's say for the past week or the past month or whatever your time frame is around that. So it is an assistant. You've got many assistants in each of these apps, and then you've got one Uber assistant that kind of gives you all of that condensed in a conversational piece. Okay.
And Tim, tell me, would it go out to the web and enhance in the web? And that again talks to that piece that says, you know what, whatever is in your organization stays in your organization. It's your data. It utilizes that. It contextualizes all the interactions that you've had with that subject matter whatever that might be. It might be summarize the board pack. It might be something in that line. Greg, would you like to weigh in and just share an insight or two there for us? Thanks, man.
Yeah, I just want to go back to, there are quite a few questions around access security and the governance of this. And I want to just go back to the point I mentioned. Yes, it can access across your organization, but you can only access what you already can access. It doesn't give you extra access. So if you've got access to a SharePoint site, then using business chat to access that, it's exactly the same as if you had actually just, logged in there and downloaded that file yourself. All it's doing here is removing, and again, it's not replacing the individual. But if you can imagine a lawyer, for example, that needs to research case law and have to go read through hundreds and hundreds of documents and contracts, etc., you can rather ask Copilot to go and do a summary for you, give you 70% of the work. So now you just need to go and refine the last 30. So your efficiency gets higher, and exactly the same with any other application. Okay, your security and firewalls or cybersecurity would be logging the access, and it's not going to be logged as accessed by a Copilot. It's going to be accessed by Greg, because the system can't go anywhere that you can't go already. So I don't know if that clears it up a little bit more, Doug.
Yeah, that's great. So I think, you're really talking to the kind of components that I think have been making people a little bit fearful of utilizing or not utilizing, of engaging with the artificial intelligence engine. For me, at the end of the day, it's around, we've got Active Directory. It gives you the landscape of who has access to what application, at what time, and for what purpose. Once you've got that indexed correctly, the rest should flow quite nicely. The next bit is, so what information, once I've accessed, can I share, can't I share, where's my compliance line? Very, very important insofar as that goes. Then building it out from that is, well, can I share this information because it has information in it that is of a sensitive nature? And those questions are built in, or the answers to those are built into the Copilot security veil, the same way as what it is built into your email, the same way as what it's built into your SharePoint, the same way as what it's built into your OneNote. So really, really at the end of it, all this combined with, are you doing the right thing? So don't ask it a question that you don't want to share in a public forum. Don't be derogatory, don't be racist, that kind of responsible AI kind of questioning is extremely, extremely important as well. So that really kind of bubbles around and creates a bubble the same way as what all the other security products in Microsoft do around your actual application space. So, and I don't know whether anybody else wants to add something insofar as that goes. Any thoughts on that? On that explanation, Tim, any refining you want to do?
No, I think that's perfectly fine. We've got a good couple of questions coming through in the chat. We'll address them as we go along, because we have actually got this prepared as part of the deck and in the Q&A session. If you don't mind, I just want to touch on some key ones. So in terms of the steps, we'll cover that a little bit later, how to get Copilot ready. Alison, you asked a question around LLMs don't access company data, and Greg was talking that Copilot accesses company data. Understand that LLMs are a base, a foundation, if this makes sense. So
well, it's a component, Tim. It's LLMs, it's the data set in your own organization to give it context, and then it is the actual application that drives the output.
So on that, then there was this graph component, right? The Microsoft Graph is used to access your company's data. So we use both LLMs and the Microsoft Graph to bring forward an answer, or a response to that prompt. So you'll prompt a question, how's the weather in Johannesburg today? We'll go find some information through LLMs, how's the weather? And let's say the company data is Johannesburg, right? Let's say that's just something more personal. We'll use the graph to pull that data forward. A better example would be, please give me a SWOT analysis of Fabricam's Excel spreadsheet that was created by Doug, right? That SWOT, give me a SWOT analysis is something that we get pulled from the LLM. The specific data, Fabricam, around their specific data is stored in your tenant. We go and pull that and we combine the two at the chat level, right, at the response level. This ties directly back to another question around, do we store data? No, we do not store your prompts. We do not restore your responses. However, the responses are stored in what's called the semantic index, which is specific to each and every customer tenant. So think about it as a database, right, to help build better queries within your organization. Key component here is your chats, your prompts never go out to the public internet and get stored on someone else's server, right? We use LLMs pre-trained. We don't train those LLMs based on your prompts. We use pre-trained LLMs, right? A library which already has this data, and we pull the specific data that you're requesting based on the context. So you want a SWOT analysis of Fabricam's Excel spreadsheet. We go and pull Fabricam's Excel spreadsheet from your data and present it directly to you in that chat. Once you click on new chat, that entire conversation is deleted. It is not stored on Microsoft servers or for public use, right, which deals with another question. I think that's pertinent as we go through this, because I don't want to leave anyone behind with a misunderstanding that, A, we store your data. We don't anonymize your data. We do collect usefulness. So was this useful to you? Rated 5 stars, right? Those kind of things. But we do not store your data or anonymize your data and train our LLMs. Let me make that super clear. We do not train our LLMs with OpenAI based on the queries that you present at all. It's in our privacy statement. It's part of our responsible AI conversation, and we follow our guidance and rules. So just to be super clear, we do not train based on your data. Your data is yours all the time.
That is awesome. It's a good place to leave this. And I think that are you going to tend to another question? Or are you good? Can I go on to the little explanation of what you've just spoken about?
Yeah, so let me quickly just check here. We'll answer a couple of these. I'm going to skip through them because we do cover them in your deck. Skill requirements, nothing for E1 customers. No, it's only Microsoft 365, by the way. It's exclusive to Microsoft 365 licenses. Will Copilot have third-party plugins? Yes, it will, outside of Microsoft ecosystem. From a security perspective, Greg has covered this. It is critically important, which relates to another question of how do I get Copilot ready? Make sure that you have the right security in place, right? Whether it's confidentiality labels, who has access to what SharePoint sites and what data. But you should be doing this in any case, besides Copilot, right? It's outside of Copilot, but we just follow your security processes and policies, right? I just want to have a look. Nothing else. We will address the other questions. There's some really good questions coming in, but we'll address them throughout your slides as well as in the Q&A afterwards. Thanks, Doug. You can take
Cool. Thank you. Okay, excellent. So let's just talk about, just to reference back, let's just see how the engine works. I was going to go on to this video, and then we may skip on to the next video as well, which talks a little bit around the productivity component, just so that you guys have an understanding of where we're going. Let's do this.
Microsoft 365 Copilot is powered by what we call the Copilot system, a sophisticated processing and orchestration engine. It harnesses the power of 3 foundational technologies: the Microsoft 365 apps, that's Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, Teams, and more. The Microsoft Graph, that's all your content and context, your emails, files, meetings, chats, and calendar. And a large language model, or LLM, a creative engine capable of parsing and producing human-readable text, all accessible through natural language. It starts with a prompt from you in an app. Copilot pre-processes the prompt through an approach called grounding. Put simply, grounding improves the quality of the prompt, so you get answers that are relevant and actionable. One of the most important parts of grounding is making a call to the Microsoft Graph to retrieve your business content and context. Copilot combines this user data from the graph with other inputs to improve the prompt. It then sends that modified prompt to the LLM. You may be familiar with what an LLM can do based on your experience with ChatGPT or Bing Chat. Copilot takes the response from the LLM and post-processes it. This post-processing includes additional grounding calls to the graph, responsible AI checks, security, compliance, and privacy reviews, and command generation. Finally, Copilot sends a response to the user and commands back to the apps. Copilot iteratively processes and orchestrates these sophisticated services to produce a result that feels like magic.
Right. Thank you very much. To that little drawing just clears up very succinctly what we've been saying for the past 10 minutes or so. And then I'd like to move on to the next section. We just want to show an example of how effective Copilot can be utilized in a application as an example. So let's do that quickly.
Let's take a look at how Copilot in Power BI is empowering everyone to quickly find and share insights. For example, say I'm a sales analyst for a hotel and resorts company. Now, with Copilot in Power BI, I can simply describe the report I want to build and get insights in seconds. Maybe we need a new report to help us understand the profile of our customers, to gain insights into what is driving return visits to our properties. I just describe what I need, and Copilot will automatically analyze my data and create a new report based on my needs. Immediately, Copilot created a new Power BI report that is fully interactive, and I can start slicing and dicing my data to explore deeper. Copilot added the charts and slicers I requested, but also conveniently gives me options to adjust the output to get just what I'm looking for. For example, let's switch to ask for metrics and trends and a slightly different layout. Automatically, Copilot updates the report. Let's go ahead and keep this report page, but it goes much further. I can also ask analysis questions such as, what are the main drivers for repeat customer visits? Copilot responds by adding a new page to my report and uses Power BI's built-in advanced analysis capabilities for finding key influencers for variables in my data. Right away, I can see that customers who purchase spa visits are the most likely to be repeat visitors, followed by those who rented sports equipment. I can easily explore Power BI's key influencer visual further to learn more. I can even automatically see the most significant segments in my data just by clicking. Now let's go back to the first page and finish up our new report. I'm going to ask Copilot to make it look like our existing sales dashboard. Copilot automatically finds and references the dashboard to adjust my report with formatting and layout to match. Best of all, I can still interact directly with the Power BI report Copilot has created. So for example, if I wanted to manually change this line chart to add the reason customers were visiting, it's easy to do with just a few clicks. Let's also change the line chart to a ribbon chart to make the data really stand out. Finally, to make the report even easier for my team to understand, I'm going to ask Copilot to add a rich text description of my data right inside the report. This narrative summary is fully dynamic, and not only does Copilot highlight interesting insights from my data, but it provides citations from where in the report the data was taken. This summary will update every time the data is refreshed, or people filter the report with new insights based on the data. And just like that, in seconds, I've created a report that would have taken hours or days to do manually. Copilot, built on top of Azure OpenAI, is truly revolutionary for how we empower everyone to find and share insights.
So just a couple of things. I want to share that same example in my world. I have a look at historical data or data relating both to where we're currently tracking as well as forecast, as well as risk areas in the business, in the modern workplace space on a continuous basis. But from time to time, I need to change the way in which I've approached the the questioning and the reporting that I'm getting out of my CRM, ERP, and email system or systems or applications. It's an end-to-end Microsoft platform, which is quite cool because it means the interoperability is there already. But from time to time, I have the challenge that I need to get hold of a consultant that can just help me tweak the BI report, the business intelligence report a little bit. So I'll put in a support call. I'll get a ticket. I'll wait 2 days. The guy will get back to me and book a time frame. We'll then set up a what are your requirements discussion. That's half an hour. Then 2 or 3 days later, I'll get the new report. And inevitably, I've already moved on and I need something else now in addition to it. So my time wasted in that whole week, or it's a whole week of time waste before I actually get to a result that I can use and reportray into the organization. If you have a look at this video, and it's not just as easy as drop and play, right? But the point that comes through here is that I don't even need to be a BI specialist anymore to first and foremost create the initial report, to then tweak the report, to then make it look pretty. And that for me is kind of the progression. And I'm seeing that in all the interactions with the artificial intelligence engines that I utilize, is how quick and easy it is to refine data and refine the outputs so it suits what your requirements are. And I just want to leave that behind with you guys, because that for me is what is the measure of that engagement. I don't know how to say to you that if I'm saving a week by doing it myself, am I not more productive? Yes, I am. Am I able to get less frustrated? Yes, I am. Am I able to deliver what I need to insofar as having promised somebody a report? Yes, I am. How at the end of the day is that, is that not an improvement in productivity? If I can't answer that question, I don't know. All I know is that I can tick off one more task hanging over my head as an information worker, as part of the structure that I work in. And I think that is like such a benefit. I honestly cannot wait anymore for this product set to come through. Tom, from your side, anything to add?
We've got a couple of cues, so maybe we can get to that quickly.
Excellent, good stuff. Okay, so from this perspective, I suppose people keep asking, what is it that we need to do? And it all comes back down to, and we've spoken about this like 10 times, data. Let's make sure that Copilot delivers you the benefit that you're looking for by utilizing your data correctly. Make sure your security is in place. Make sure that your data, both in archive and in live, is securitized, and that the right accesses are given to the right people at the right time for the right information. We can obviously integrate into additional apps. I haven't seen anything tested outside of the Microsoft stack at the moment, and maybe Tim, you can add some weight into that. And then obviously give the control to the people that need the control. Not everybody is going to need the application. Make sure it resides with the people that actually can use it to its full extent. And then we're going to need to learn new skills. So the change control and the change management that's going to be required to enable somebody to utilize this product will not be as great as what we think to start off with, because it looks and feels like the Microsoft product set. But there will definitely be some discussions around how accurate is this information, and that accuracy will be determined by what does your business data look like, what are the security aspects you've put in place to ensure proper data maneuverability. Good with that?
Perfect. Thanks, Doug.
Tick boxes, yeah. Okay. All right. So I'm going to, Tim, ask you just to cover a little bit insofar as the resources go. There's obviously a huge amount of content all over the web around how this AI engine works, why it works the way it works, et cetera, But I think there are a couple of places where we can go in and have a look at the resources for leaders that will help them make the decision as to where and how and what to do in this space.
100%. So I understand that this concept of AI is very new to a lot of people. There is also a lot of fear in what it can do and its capabilities, but also a lot of what can it do for my business. You've touched on that, right? Increasing my productivity, shortening my time to market or time to email or time to document. We've published a series of our TEI Forrester studies at the link below, our work lab. So if you want to see where our customers are taking the journey in AI and a bunch of other products and services, bookmark this page. It is really earmarked or dedicated to executives and business decision makers in how to take on the next product set or what is the next wave, that typical bell curve that everyone sees, where are we in that technology stack, but really talks around how can products make me more productive. And at the end of the day, the reason why we're looking at AI is to make more money, right? It comes down to how can I, as a business, make more money using the tools at my disposal. So please, for the execs on the call, business decision makers, have a look at our Microsoft.com/worklab website, which shows all of these trends and indexes that we've cataloged. You've probably heard us talk about TEI so many times in our slides. This is where you can get those if you need to support that statement.
Excellent. And I think one of the things that sticks out there for me is pretty quick. How do we make more money? We sell more at higher margin, or we reduce costs. And as soon as we talk about productivity, I'm talking about reduction of costs. And I think that we've finally got a mechanism whereby we can measure that. Let me get on to the next slide quickly. Let's just talk a little bit about the semantic index for Copilot. I think that this is a very important and key part of the engagement, particularly in the modern workplace. When we're talking about the Azure components, it becomes a little bit more complex and a little bit more in-depth. Tim, again, I'm going to ask you just to give us a quick little, like minute or so, just talking about the role that the semantic index for Copilot will play in an organization.
So semantic index is an index, just think about it as a typical book index, right, of connectivity to different types of data that these queries or prompts that you've put forward to. So if I, for example, get back to my example of asking for a SWOT analysis against Fabricam's revenue targets for revenue for the past year, we do not store those prompts in the Microsoft cloud as a public service. Obviously, that kind of information gets stored internally that you might have heard me talk about. We refer to that as the semantic index. So you can see the relation of the prompts versus the data that has been presented to the customer or to the end user, sorry. It is important to note this is admin, right? So the admin gets to see how these correlations go, right? What kind of data, Word documents, Excel documents, PowerPoints, emails were attached to specific queries. This is not stored with us publicly. It's all in your tenant data, so that either your admins can go ahead and clear the semantic index if there is a there's a relationship disconnect, or if they don't want that kind of question up anymore. This follows your security guidelines as well. Back to Greg's statement earlier about how important security is, right? Your policies, tagging documents for confidentiality, giving people the right access to the right sites, to the right documents, that all comes into play here. So that pretty much, if I had to sum it up, but you could read a ton of the stuff around semantic index on the web.
Excellent, good stuff. So nice tool sets to help us along that curve that are going to be released very shortly. And then just to finally kind of close off, and I think that we've reiterated this about 10 times. Your data is your data. The data will not be used to fine-tune any of the large language AI models, and your data is protected by the comprehensive security solutions that Microsoft have in play on your solutions, particularly in the Microsoft 365 E3 and E5 space. So to that end, I'd like to get on to the Q&A.
Cool. Thank you very much, everyone, for your questions. I'll start with the first one. Comes from Kobas. When will Copilot be available in South Africa, or is it already available?
I think I'll take that question. So we can't answer GA dates in any of our products, and I'll tell you why. We're currently previewing Copilot, so Microsoft 365 Copilot with the 600 customers that Doug mentioned earlier, and kind of deciding whether or not we should delay the launch or if we could bring it up earlier. But at the moment, we can't give you a GA date, general availability date for when Copilot will go live. When it does go live, however, it will go live globally. It won't be rolled out in the US only for 3 months. It will be a global rollout.
Cool. And then on to the next one. Are there any skills particular skills that admins would need in an organization from an IT level in order to set up Copilot?
So from a technical skills perspective, you would obviously need people who understand the Microsoft 365 portal, as well as your security experts, right? You do need security skills because remember, it's all based on your company's security policies. But to set up Copilot itself as a technical exercise, it's a cloud-only service, so no on-prem, so no integration into on-premise data. It's pure cloud. Coming back to Doug's statement of you need to be a Microsoft 365 customer, you need to have Azure Active Directory or Entra ID now. It does not look at on-premise data. So you need someone who understands the Microsoft 365 portal, understands the technical deployment of the Microsoft 365 apps, and to deploy Copilot itself. I think there's a human element here. We call it adoption and change management. Kind of need to teach people how to use it, right? You can't just simply throw them into the fire pit and hope that they prompt correctly. So for any organization planning on deploying Copilot, security, the M365 apps, so the licenses, as well as the adoption and change management piece. Doug, did I get that concise from a technical perspective? Do you want to add anything there?
I would. I think that, we're talking about Microsoft 365 in the ambits of the modern workplace. So I'm going to say that Greg probably has a list of skill sets he'd love to utilize in this space, from understanding data and data lakes and all those, interesting concepts, particularly as this needs to reach potentially into your, I'm going to call them your third-party apps like Still or something horrible like that, or alternatively into your Dynamics cloud environment. And yeah, so I suppose, Greg, maybe you just want to quickly give a bit of insights of what you would recommend for somebody from a skill set perspective in the data side.
So from a perspective of getting the data right, under the auspices of just under the M365 Copilot, it's anyone, for example, your email administrator, your domain administrator, is in any case will have the skills to ensure that that data is in a good space. If you want to start talking about further AI adoption or further Copilot adoption across the enterprise, that becomes a much bigger conversation, and it's. This is a good starting point for that, and we will schedule sessions about getting ready. What is the roadmap to adopt AI? Because it's not just a technical skill. We need to also, from a change management perspective, get the business owners to understand that the HR manager is in charge of the HR data, and they own it. And they need to take responsibility for it. It's not just sitting in IT anymore. It's now, and how do you write the prompts? What is an efficient way to write a prompt in order to get the best results? So it is a learning journey. It's not something I can say you can put down a data scientist or you need a SQL engineer. It is going to be a blend of soft and hard skills. It was the same as when Microsoft launches a new feature in Teams. You need to get used to it, and it might affect the way you do it. And that's the way I look at Copilot. It's just your old little clip on steroids.
Thank you, Greg.
Okay, thank you, gents. On to the next one from one of our own, Chris. He says that how much configuration will be needed for Copilot, or is it an off-the-shelf install, so plug and play?
If it's a product set, like the normal Microsoft product sets are, I think without the foundation, as we've spoken about, the right security settings, the right accesses to the right documents, without the correct indexing, without making sure that your data, your internal data is ready for Copilot, I wouldn't even go live. I mean, I would hate somebody to ask a question around, so please, can you share everybody's salaries with me? And it's, somebody that doesn't or can't or shouldn't have access to that information. So I suppose the idea is that you can switch it on or configure it as soon as your data is ready. And how long that will take, I'm not certain of. We haven't had access to the product yet, so it's still kind of up in the air. I don't know. Tim, have you potentially got any insights insofar as that goes? I'm certain you guys are using it internally.
So yes, and I can't hammer the security conversation enough, right? Can you easily deploy Copilot? Yes, and at simple steps, right? Assign a license and go through the getting started wizard. As long as you're a cloud-based and you've ticked all the technical prerequisites, sure, it will work out of the box. But it won't work the way that your business needs it to work. Exactly to your point, asking questions on documents that maybe are obscured because people are not searching for them by name or searching the correct name. Copilot can potentially surface that if those documents are not protected. So is it easy to deploy? Yes. Should you do it the easy way? Yeah, sure, no problem. You can just deploy it and start using it. But there is a high risk, a super high risk if you do not secure your data. So that comes back to adoption and change management, security, and then the technical requirements.
Cool. Thanks a lot, gents. And then second last question, I'm going to combine between these two guys, between Herman and Raymond. They asked a similar thing, which is, will Copilot interact with external products, so outside of the Microsoft ecosystem? Herman referenced particularly Mac OS, Linux, and any other server apps that are out of the Microsoft ecosystem. And will the security protocol of Copilot essentially affect how it would work with these external technology products?
So coming again around where Copilot plays, it is a cloud-only service, no on-prem, right? So whether you have Word, Excel, PowerPoint on a Windows on an Intel-based PC or a Mac-based PC, it will work, right? It doesn't talk to other hardware vendors. It works exclusively in our cloud. There are third-party integrations into service providers like Twilio, TripAdvisor, who can actually help you with that. For example, I'm planning on taking a business trip to Seattle or Dubai. These are my departure dates. Please give me some advice around this and help me book this internally on my tools, like Concur from SAP, right? Those APIs can be integrated, but from a other platforms perspective, we will obviously launch first on Intel-based machines with Windows, right? Or Windows-based machines with Mac and Linux following shortly after.
Thank you. Thanks for the roadmap.
Okay, and then the final question, how do we use AI in the workplace to enhance processes and improve business without harming the human? If the cost of AI is the loss of jobs, I think that's obviously one of the worries when it comes to AI. Will it reduce the opportunities for human employment versus the benefits that we can reap from implementing tools like AI in the form of ChatGPT and M365 Copilot?
I think we've gone through this process, right? The idea is to actually install trust that here is a tool set that will work with you as your assistant. I'm not seeing loss of jobs. I'm seeing a change in some of the aspects of the jobs because you're going to be able to do so much more in such a shorter period of time. So for me, that is kind of the short answer. And I think that probably put together a nice written answer to the gent that raised that up front. I really do appreciate that question. And it was nice to have it early enough for us to prep some of our discussion points around it. Thank you.
Cool. Last one. Will MS365 Copilot interface with third-party ERPs? So I think that's more in the direction of Dynamics 365's Copilot. That's more of the ERP sphere.
Yeah. Again, Tim, I wouldn't know if this can connect to Oracle or a SAP or a SAP B1. Can you potentially shed some light?
Yep, sure, no problem. So as we grow the conversation around Copilot in the coming months, you'll probably see more and more integration into these these large third-party solutions. For example, we do have integration into Dynamics 365. So it will have its own Copilot, but we also have Viva Sales. So you'll see these kind of API integrations coming in the near future.
Thank you. Good.
To close off, thank you everyone for attending. Hope you got a lot of value from the session, as well as information in order to decide what you're going to do next with AI. If you have any particular questions that you still want to share with us or get in touch with us, please feel free to email inquiries@braintree.co.za and we will forward your questions onto the gentleman. Otherwise, you can visit our website, braintree.co.za, leave your query there.